The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show, ladies and gentlemen. I am Benjamin Dixon, filling in for David while he is away on traveling today to get to Las Vegas for a conference. He will be broadcasting from the conference. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. Had a great time. As always, it's a pleasure filling in for David. The craziest thing happened yesterday. I was speaking at Clark Atlanta University here in Atlanta, Georgia. And Clark Atlanta is a historically black college and university, HBCU. And after I got done speaking, as I was walking out of the building, I looked up and saw David Pakman on their TV screens, in their journalism school TV screens. He was doing his broadcast. And I thought that was pretty cool. You know, HBCUs, historically black colleges, universities. I was just there speaking. I attended a HBCU and I come out and I see my friend David on the screen just going off on, I don't remember what he was talking about because I was on my way out the door, but I got a picture of it. And so I just thought that was cool. But while I was there at the school, I had an opportunity to talk to a journalism class about what it is that I do. And what I do is very similar to what David does. And it became an interesting conversation, seeing an entire class, a lecture hall full of students who wanted to get into media and wanted to get into podcasting, some for different reasons. Some were there because they wanted to do it for sports journalism or, music journalism. But there was a large group of people in that class who they were there because they wanted to do politics and they wanted to do justice and they wanted to affect the world in a similar fashion that David and I are, in our own way. Might just be a really small way, but that's why we do what we do. And so it's amazing how there's been a definitive shift in media and the need for this space, this independent media space, which I talk about quite a bit. But it's important because there's so many people and so many important stories that would not be covered if not covered by people like David, not covered by people like me. Basically covered by people who take on the challenge of being in this independent media space. Now, trust me, I'm not setting this up to be a fundraiser for David. All of you are already paying members, which, if anything, we're just saying thank you for empowering us to be able to tell the stories that aren't being told, to cover the issues that are neglected in the media, and really to kind of create a hotbed. Like I had so many students yesterday, not so many, I had a handful of students who were like, they wanted to come and shadow me and to learn so that they can do this after they graduate or as they prepare to graduate. And so it's almost like we're, David's, and if you look at this like in, I don't know, generations, this generation of podcasters / independent media personalities, we're giving birth to another generation that are going to come behind us and do even more and tackle even more issues than we were able to cover. So I think that's really cool. I mean, we have the ability to affect change in ways and to do it without being bound to the corporate demands. Like, I know, forgive me, I know this sounds like a script to raise money for independent media, but I don't know if we say it enough about the constraints that are placed on us by corporations. And it really becomes depressing when there's an issue that needs to be covered, but you can't. But you simply cannot because it will upset the advertisers, which makes this whole shift towards independent media so critical, so crucial, because, what good is journalism? What good is journalism if we're only able to cover the things that corporations allow us to cover? But here's the other phenomenon, though, and this is why truly independent media is so critical. Because I've worked for some quote unquote independent media companies who themselves place constraints on us to cover only stories that they're comfortable with. So what is happening, and I don't think it's a bad thing, right? It's something in political science that we refer to as democratization. Very common term. It's not, it's not highbrow and erudite. It's just a common term in political science called the democratization of whatever, fill in the blank. The democratization of media, the democratization of the movie industry, like Netflix and Hulu and those different companies. They represent the democratization of those industries because, and actually even more so, YouTube, right? The less expensive equipment gets, or the cheaper that equipment gets, it helps democratize media and movies. And in that, you have good and you have bad, right? You have the flooding of the market with a lot of mediocre content, a lot of stuff that just shouldn't get any play. Same thing in the independent media space. You have so many people who are now news personalities, who are now, hosting their shows, and some of it is good and some of it is just not good, right? And same thing happens across all industries. That's what happens when you have the democratization of anything. You have the flooding of the market, but you also have the opportunity, man, the opportunity to hear voices that you never would have heard. You never would have heard of a Ben Dixon if not for the democratization of political media through social media, through YouTube, through Facebook, through all these other platforms that we use to get our voices out and amplified. And what's important about that is that we're like the first wave, maybe the second wave. Maybe the Young Turks, they were the first wave of the democratization of media, and we are the second wave. I'll leave it to some political theorists, political scientists, to actually demarcate where those waves took place. I might actually be lumped in with the first wave of the Young Turks and the David Pakmans. Maybe I just came at the tail end of that wave. But all that to say, the kids, the next wave of the democratization of media, it's happening. It's happening right before our eyes. I mean, they brought me into Clark Atlanta University to talk to them about it, right? And then I walk out and they're watching David Pakman do it, And so this is happening on college campuses, which is really critical, right? You can't really downplay that, how significant that is, because now you have an entire generation. Hopefully here's the thing. Maybe this was a one-off. I don't know. Maybe it's something that we need to look at and say, this is something that we structurally need to implement. Right? Conservatives are doing it for sure. Look at the Charlie Kirks, Charlie Kirks of the world. His organization, Turning Point USA, is designed to go college campus by college campus to convert people to conservatism and to support capitalism. So they have a really strategic and a very meticulous effort underway of converting the next generation for conservatism. So if by chance this was just a one-off of David being played at a university and people like me going to campuses and speaking and energizing and mobilizing the next generation, if that was a one-off, it shouldn't be, because we absolutely need that, right? We need to inculcate the next generation. We need to give them the tools, not just give them the ideology, right? They can read the ideology in the book. They can go to YouTube and get it from, but we need to equip them with the tools to actually be that next generation of voice, that next wave of democratized media, to take it to the next level, to use a cliche. So if it was a one-off, it shouldn't be. And maybe that's something that we need to look at. And it's fascinating, as I'm just kind of talking to you about this, is actually something that I actually have some business plans for. Now that I think about it, I kind of got busy working on another company, but this needs to happen, right? We need to equip, in this democratized space. Not everyone is going to be excellent. Some people probably need to change their careers and not try to be a podcaster and not try, that's fine. That's going to happen in a democratized space. But without that democratized space, you would not get voices like David Pakman. You would not get voices like Benjamin Dixon. And so we, who are currently doing it to greater or lesser extent, we certainly need to be equipping the next generation of voices to be able to do it even better. Yeah, I think that's, wow. I actually pieced that together into something very meaningful. Doesn't always happen like that. But but I'm glad that it did. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. David will be back tomorrow. Continue supporting his work because he's doing a good thing. And thank you all for supporting me over the years. I'm still here. I'm actually coming back even more so. I'll be hosting a show called To The Point, where I get to the point of an issue, I cut through the bullshit, and I do it all underneath 3 minutes. So that's what's coming up for me very soon, i.e. this week or next week. And that's it. Take care, and we will see you next time. Take care, everybody.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.